Not only does 2024 come to an end, but so do our 3 yearly wrap-up episodes.
Equally as important as the entirety of the year, right?
Yeah, so we went through songs, we've gone through albums, and now it's time to put a bow on 2024 and the Top 8 podcast for 2024 as we finish up the year with a Top 8 Wrapped episode.
Yeah, so this is going to be fun. We're counting down kind of 8 different topics. So different than our usual list where we have one topic, we count down 8 things within that topic. We have 8 different categories, kind of like an awards category. And we're going to talk about some bands or songs, etc., that we considered in each category. But what we ultimately decided was the winner of a given category.
Yeah, so we're not going to be doing what we think in each one in our own individual top 8 lists as we normally do, but instead, before we started recording, we came up with an ideal winner for each top 8 category, and we're just going to run through that, and we can discuss a little bit of where our headspace was and maybe some of the contenders for each category. And I'm really curious what you were going to say about this one as well, on who you think is going to be, artist of the year, comeback artist of the year, album of the year, I can run all of these categories.
I'm going to run through the categories so everybody has them. And then once I do, take a second, go into the comments on Spotify, YouTube, etc. Put what you think we might pick, or just put what you would have picked in each of those categories, and we'll compare.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And before you do that, hit the follow or subscribe button.
Even better. So each of these categories: comeback band of the year, breakthrough artist of the year, tour of the year, feature of the year, song of the year, EP of the year, album of the year, artist of the year. So some big categories there at the end.
Some really big categories. I'm really excited to go through a lot of these, but man, is there anything from 2024 before we really get into the actual list that stood out to you the most in the music world, or really stuck to you? Maybe something that we haven't talked about or made a list about, like any announcements or 24 moment in music.
Ooh, that is the defining moment for me is the return of one of my favorite bands of all time, Linkin Park. The fact that they came back, dropped new music, got everybody hyped, announced shows like a week after their first live stream. They're like, hey, we're going to play in like New York in a week. Who wants to come? Like, that's insane, unheard of for like a booking process for that is crazy. Announcing massive world tour for next year. I'm so excited for Linkin Park. Equally as exciting for a lot of people, My Chemical Romance announcing that they're touring the Black Parade in full all of next year.
Yeah, 2025 is going to be a huge year. Yeah. So coming off of 2024, just to let you know and keep you listener, viewer informed with what our plans are for the next year, is we're going to take a break over the holidays and come back in January stronger than ever with, what we anticipate for 2025. We're going to talk about things like the My Chemical Romance tour, the Linkin Park tour, and all of these things that are going to be happening for the year, our predictions. We're going to have so many more new guests. That's what we're working on right now, getting guests from your favorite influencers to your favorite bands on the show. So look forward to that. And I think a big thing for me for 2024, besides getting married.
I also got married in 2024, so big year for the both of us, personal lives.
big personal year, and then huge year for the Top 8 podcast as well. I think one of the biggest highlights was going to be All Your Friends Fest and When We Were Young.
Of course, massive opportunities that starting this thing back in January on a whim, you're like, there's no way. Like, oh, we'll start it for a couple of years. Maybe we'll get some cool opportunities. To be able to do All Your Friends Fest as early as like 7 months into starting this podcast, absolutely unheard of. We can't be thankful enough to the team at All Your Friends Fest. We're so looking forward to 2025 because that just got announced too.
Yes.
Super exciting.
Yes. And I want to do an episode on guessing who their headliners are going to be, because
Same.
That'll be a fun one. That I think was my biggest surprise of 2024.
That was a big surprise, yeah.
Because it just all of a sudden popped up and everyone was DMing me like, hey, do you know anything about this? It kind of looks like it's a emo festival. It's called All Your Friends Fest. Yeah. It's kind of got that sort of aesthetic. It's going to be, at this big open festival grounds. I was like, I have no idea. I started
a mini Canadian when we were young, if you will.
Yeah, I started like going through my Rolodex, if you will, being like, do you know any bands that are going to be on this? What's going on? Who, like, can someone tell me something? And then to being able to do that and already getting that message from the team being like, hey, looking forward to having you next year. So we kind of already know that's something that's going to happen for 2025, which is really, really exciting. So it was definitely a huge, huge year for us and for the podcast and for emo and pop punk and metalcore music. So
we have so much planned for 2025 that we can't even talk about yet. And we're just so excited, and we hope that you are too.
And just so much appreciation for the support in such a little amount of time. Like, that's huge for us. So please, keep showing that, and we're going to show that for you. Like I mentioned in a past episode, one of the things that we're going to start doing in 2025 is showing more appreciation for you and reading out those reviews that we've received. So if you do give us a review, if you leave a comment, we're going to read those out, and we're going to make you the star of the show, because ultimately that's who is the star of the show. It's not us. It's not the people we interview. It's the people listening and watching each and every single week. So we want to show more appreciation for you.
Absolutely.
So leave those reviews, and we're going to do more of that.
Thank you so much. That's all we can really say.
Let's get into 2024 in terms of who won the year.
Who won the year? Well, let's start with comeback band of the year. Usually when we were going through these categories, we had 3 or 4 mentions like, oh, I consider this. There was only one mention from the both of us, and it was Linkin Park, baby.
Has to be. Who else came back in this capacity? If they are, I think Linkin Park's come back, and maybe because it was so recent, but it's been so big that it's totally overshadowed anybody else coming back.
Yeah, I'd say that too. I mean, some other ones that I can kind of think of, like The Story So Far hadn't dropped anything in a while. So for them to come back and be like, hey, we're putting out new music, that was like a mini comeback. But this was like, we haven't put out music in 7 years, like new music in 7 years.
And our lead singer died, and we have a new person coming
a new vocalist
to fill those really big shoes.
Yeah, the live stream, like we mentioned earlier, all of the show announcements, now the world tour, the whole album. This is the year, a big year for Linkin Park.
Yeah, and I think it's just the start of it coming back, and then 2025 is going to be the year Linkin Park for real.
Yeah, honestly, like August 8th cannot come soon enough. I'm already counting down. I'm obsessed. It's unhealthy.
Can we talk about how huge this comeback is in this capacity as well? Like, we both paid the money to be a part of Linkin Park Underground in order to get pre-sale tickets for this, and I'm so glad we did, because this tour, the prices just like got so expensive so quickly that looking at floor seats now are triple what we paid.
Yeah, I signed up for Linkin Park Underground right after they came back. So I think it was like a week after they came back. I was like, I know there's going to be opportunities. I'm going to sign up for this just for the hell of it. I'm so glad I did. And I told you, I was like, man, I think you should do it too. Because like to be able to get in early on Monday to get floor tickets for less than $250 each, when somebody messaged me on Thursday, or no,
I looked yesterday. They're $768.
Like resale?
Yeah.
Okay. Because they were
technically, I could sell all 4 of mine and make like $2,000.
I know.
But like, I would rather go and see them than make the $2,000. So
100%. Like we avoided the dynamic pricing, which I think was the huge thing.
That's the big thing.
I gave a pre-sale code to somebody from a newsletter that I got for the Wednesday, and it was already up to like $400 for a floor ticket. I was like, oh my, I'm so.
And that's just it. Not many people think to pay for the pre-sale code because they don't want to pay for it, but it's super easy to get a newsletter code because it's free, or a Spotify code, or any of those things. Whereas like when you pay for it, when I joined the queue, there were only like 2,600 people in front of me. Whereas I'm sure if I waited for like the Wednesday pre-sale, it would have been 20,000 people in front of me.
Easy.
So easily that is a great way of avoiding those dynamic pricing model. But super happy that we got that. And
floor at Scotiabank Arena. I've never been floor at there before. I'm so excited.
It's going to be awesome. So what's our next category beyond comeback of the year?
So next category is breakthrough artist of the year. So we had discussed a couple of different artists before giving away who we actually gave the nod to. First one we talked about was Silly Goose.
Yeah, they I think over this year and maybe a little bit into like end of 2023, they started really heavily going viral on TikTok and making those. And like
making a name for themselves.
Yeah, and I really love the way that they market themselves as well. It's so different. It's so new. It's, it's very much like old school guerrilla type marketing of like, hey, there's going to be people that enjoy this type of music at this venue. We're going to show up. If in case you haven't heard of Silly Goose or have seen their videos, they basically show up outside of other people's shows with their van and their trailer that they built themselves, and they will play shows in the parking lot outside of the show. So you're leaving a Slipknot show, let's say, and on your way out, they're playing in the parking lot or across the street at the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, mosh pits.
So hard.
I was gonna say mosh pits at gas stations, at Denny's. Like, it's crazy.
They've had crazy altercations with police and security guards and like just crazy altercations, but like they've made a name for themselves, and now they're playing shows inside instead of outside.
I was gonna say, I think the reason we didn't give it to them is they are starting to make a name for themselves in the social space, and I think next year is going to be a breakout year for them in terms of like music they're putting out, and now they're starting to get like real festival opportunities.
Yeah,
which
they
is
got
be
some
huge
festival invites this year as well. And the thing is with the breakthrough artists, a lot of the times I like putting those up and coming bands, but a lot of those times those up and coming bands are those bands that have been doing it for 4 or 5 years, and they just finally had that moment that took them to the next level. Like I would say maybe last year it would have been, and we weren't doing this podcast last year, but last year it would have been Arm's Length, right?
Yeah.
Like Arm's Length was that emo band that they've been doing it for a few years beforehand, but then overnight people started to like go back to that album that they released before, and it put them up and gave them a name, and they started getting recognized by all the other bands on the scene.
Yeah.
They started getting those tour invites, all of those things. Whereas with this year, it's very similar in a sense of an artist that got a lot of that, attention in the past and has been around doing it for a while. But this year, it really sent this artist into the next stratosphere, into that next level.
You want to give away who it was?
I'll let you do that.
Okay, well, first off, we also considered Speed because they're a sick, brand new hardcore band from Australia. They had like Travis Barker and Kourtney Kardashian side stage watching them. Super cool. But who we actually gave it to is Poppy.
Yeah.
Massive year for Poppy.
I feel like you're probably going, what the fuck?
She's been around for a while.
About Silly Goose and Speed to go to Poppy. Like, yeah, she's a pop artist, heavy artist, but she has been doing it for a while. But this year with the features with Bad Omens and the features with Knocked Loose and this new album coming out at the end of the year, and festival appearances as well. There's just so much attention within the heavy scene and within the scene in general around Poppy that this year, those features, that album really sent her into that space where into the mainstream, basically. Yeah,
a lot of viral moments, like her showing up at Sick New World to do Suffocate with Knocked Loose, showing up also at Sick New World to do Van with Bad Omens. Like a lot of those moments that Poppy's been involved in. And then to cap it all off with dropping her record and then getting Grammy nominated alongside Knocked Loose, and now is also going to be joining Knocked Loose at Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
So it's just been like, she's been around for a while, but now it seems like all eyes are on Poppy right now. So we had to give it to her.
Yeah, she's really gotten to that next level. What's our next category?
Next category, Tour of the Year. So the first one that we considered was one that we both went to, the least anticipated album tour. A Day to Remember, 4 Years Strong, The Story So Far, and I think it was Military Gun that opened up our tour date too.
Yeah, and there was Scowl on that bill as well, but they weren't at our show, I don't think.
No, they weren't.
Okay.
So this was...
I showed up a little bit late, so I wouldn't have seen.
Fair enough. Yeah, you did show up a little bit late.
Even though I love Scowl, and honestly, if they were there, I showed up late because of work, so I couldn't do anything.
They weren't
about
there.
That,
I can confirm they weren't. It was only 4 bands. This probably was my tour of the year because I'm just such a fan of A Day to Remember. But then to have also the Easy Core Legends and 4 Years Strong opening up for them, who put on a phenomenal performance.
And we've talked in past episodes about how we weren't crazy about The Story So Far's performance. Still having The Story So Far,
the name recognition is there,
and A Day to Remember and 4 Years Strong and Military Gun on the same bill is stacked in and of itself.
Yeah. Another one that we considered, I considered because I was the only one that went to it, was the One More Time tour, specifically the Toronto show, because it was Hot Milk, Pierce the Veil, and then Alexis on Fire got added, which is huge for Canadian post-hardcore fans, and obviously Blink-182. That was a massive show.
I had tickets to this one and couldn't go because of work, but this is one I'm sad that I couldn't go to. This was a stacked lineup. I think when it comes to personal favorites, this probably would have been my personal favorite in terms of lineup, having all of those bands there, and that being such a huge tour. 100%, I think that is like a very close second, and I feel like personally, I'd probably want to put that at number one because of my personal tastes. But what we put at number one, I felt we looked at a little bit more objectively.
Yes, which is Green Day's The Saviors Tour, which featured the Linda Lindas, Rancid, the Smashing Pumpkins, and Green Day playing not one album in full, but 2 albums in full, along with greatest hits, which is absurd.
And I think that's what really put it over the edge, right?
Yeah.
Like, not only do you have the Linda Lindas, but like Rancid, like to go from the Linda Lindas to like Rancid and having that legendary punk band in there, to the Smashing Pumpkins to having a legendary 90s
headliners in their own right.
There. Each band could have sold out that stadium on their own. Now to pack all of that into one tour and then to play your 2 most popular albums and mix in all of the singles from other albums that aren't included in the play for, 3 hours basically, while you also have Rancid and the Smashing Pumpkins playing, like, and Linda Lindas, like, that's huge. So how could we not, like, and I'm a much bigger Blink-182 guy, you know, there's even the Wax Bodega tour, I'm more inclined and would like enjoy more than the I enjoy that lineup technically more than this Green Day lineup in terms of personal opinion, but it's way too big and grandiose to not have in this spot.
Green Day playing for 3 hours straight, playing both these records in full, all the extra songs. One of the best performances I've ever seen ever, like especially them being, in their 50s, 60s, to be able to play for that long. That's insane.
Bro, Green Day are not in their 60s.
It's not 6, sorry. I was like, I meant to say like between 50. Like they're 50 now, right?
They've got to be like between like 40 to 50.
I'm going to look like a fool if not, but they're around 50. I correct myself.
Well, mind you, actually, no, they're a 90s band. And I'm like, I
always forget how early they actually started, right?
Yeah, because I always lump them into the same category as Blink-182, but they were around for a lot longer than Blink-182. Let's just Google how old is Billy Joe.
I know. 1972. So what's that? 52.
Age, 52 years old. So so he's 50. He's 50.
I was aging them up a little bit, but like, around 50. But yeah, honestly,
but still, they're playing three hours long at 50 years old. Like there's just so few people that actually play for 3+ hours and can do that each and every single night on a massive tour.
Without really taking a break either.
In general, like you've got Bruce Springsteen, I forget if Madonna has done those sets for that long, but
Taylor Swift is like the other one I think of.
Yeah, Taylor Swift and Bruce Springsteen are really the 2 artists and acts that I think of that do 3-hour shows, and now Green Day's being associated at that level. That like that's huge.
Yeah. I left that show being like, I never have to see Green Day again. Like I got my fill of everything I could possibly want from a Green Day set, which is perfect. Next category for us, feature of the year.
Yes.
We had some considerations before giving it to a certain artist, but one of them was
There's going to be a theme in this episode.
I know there is a consistency. I'm sure you can already guess it, but one of the considerations was Era on Bad Omens' Anything More Than Human, which was one of my songs of the year. It's a great song. Again, that whole Bad Omens project kind of came and went for me, but this song stuck. And I think Era adds a really cool metalcore, tonality into what Bad Omens has kind of become over the past couple of years. So I really like this project, I really like this song.
Yeah, I really like that song too. It's the only song that's a takeaway song from that project for me. Yeah. So yeah, that's a great feature. And it's sort of hard to think about, features for the year without thinking about the song that we actually gave it to. Our breakthrough artist we already touched on has had two huge features this year with Van and with Suffocate. So this year we have to give the feature of the year to Poppy for her feature on Suffocate.
Suffocate for sure.
Because let's be real, out of those two songs, Van and Suffocate, I think both Knocked Loose and Poppy shined a lot more than Bad Omens, and Poppy shined on Van.
Yeah,
like Poppy,
it was less of a feature and more of a collaboration. It was like Bad Omens instrumentals, Poppy alone on vocals, whereas Knock Loose and Poppy really balanced each other so well.
And it surprised everyone. Especially with the way that they did it.
Yeah.
And it became my one of, if not my favorite song on that album already.
Yeah.
So to have that feature with with Poppy being there was just incredible.
They were like, "Oh, Poppy is like Brian's little sister on this." Like she goes as hard of, if not harder than Brian goes on the entirety of the song. I don't know. It's so good. What else can you say? It's mosh pit fuel.
Yes, absolutely. What's our next category?
All right, so this one, if you haven't listened to our Songs of the Year episode, go back 2 episodes, pause this episode right now, go back and listen to that one or watch it, whatever, the platform that you're on.
We're going to spoil our number one,
Yeah.
But you can go back, listen to that full episode and hear what 2 through 8 will be. But this is going to be that number one song of the year as we get to our song of the year for 2024. So
this a consideration, one that was on your song of the year list, was The Emptiness Machine, Linkin Park's big comeback single. Ton of energy, such a sing-alongable chorus. That's probably not even a word, but you want to sing along to it. But we had to give it again to Suffocate. It's the fucking song of the year, bro. It's Grammy nominated. Massive W for heavy music.
Back to back, Suffocate winning 2 awards. They're cleaning up. Let's get Poppy and Brian in here, Knock Loose in here. Let's give them their awards and they can walk away back to back.
You got to get some like little medals printed out.
There's always someone that cleans up at an award show, and right now, Poppy is cleaning up for sure. She's got 3.
Yeah, deservedly so though. Like Breakthrough Artist of the Year, Feature of the Year, and then it was my song. It was my number one song of the year. Spoiler alert if you haven't listened to that one, and it was on your list.
Yes.
It was 4th or 3rd or something. It's undeniable though, really.
And our next category is going to be EP of the year.
EP of the year. So we had more contenders for this one than any other one personally, because we didn't do like a dedicated episode to EPs, even though I kind of wanted to. Some personal picks from me were the 2 EPs from Disembodied Tyrant. I talked about that in my Songs of the Year episode. Definitely go listen to that band if you're into deathcore whatsoever. And then one that we were both listening to a bunch was Ben Quad's EP.
Yeah, so I've been listening to Ben Quad for the last few years now because they've kind of been more emo, kind of Midwestern emo, post-hardcore influences, and they were just kind of one of those emo bands that I felt like a part of that Hot Mulligan and Arm's Length and all of that type of era. They kind of fit really perfectly within that sound. But this past year, they recently signed with Pure Noise Records. Yeah. And I feel like making that switch on over to Pure Noise, it's like
they hung out with Isaac Hale from Knock Loose for a day and they're like, oh, I can do that.
and they released this incredibly heavy post-hardcore EP. And when I first turned it on, I did not expect it from them. And I was like, holy shit. And immediately I messaged TJ and Dakota, who's a regular on the show.
Shout out.
I was like, guys, you need to check out this Ben Quad EP because they went
it's
from
very
this,
like early 2000s post-hardcore. You get vibes of like, I'm even trying to think like Static Dress and like I'm trying to think of other bands from like the 2000s. That like Static Dress is like influenced by the 2000s, but I don't know. There's so much there.
Way more screaming than I expected when I threw on a Ben Quad record. And like I said, been listening to them for years now. And then this, I was like, oh, okay, maybe their past stuff I wouldn't have recommended to someone like TJ, but this record or this EP, I was like,
I was hesitant.
You need to check it out.
Because you had recommended them to me before, and I'm like, okay, that like I get what they're going for. It's not generally my style.
But I sold it to you as like, guys, this is heavy and you need to listen to it. It's not like their old stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. It's been on repeat for me too.
It's a good one. For me as well, speaking of heavy EPs, The Plot in You,
dropping 2 this year.
they had one like end of last year, and so The Plot in You has very quickly become my favorite traditional metalcore band. And these, I think we mentioned this in the albums episode. If these 3 EPs were combined to an album, it would be an album of the year for me. But individually, each 3 EP deserved the recognition for the year. This was definitely these projects have been one of my favorite projects of the year as well. And kind of going back to just so many great EPs. We should have done an EP episode, but not enough time, and we had to kind of choose, right? But another one we talked about in the songs episode as well is the Hot Mulligan EP. Hot Mulligan, I did not expect them to come out with new music this year, but they're staying on that grind, and they released an amazing 3-song EP. But
drop from the boys and Counterparts.
it was a real surprise.
It was a real surprise. Literally, nobody saw it coming. I thought it was fake when I first saw the announcement, to be honest. But a really solid 6-track straight metalcore, melodic hardcore EP. A lot of people were comparing it to End, which is Brennan Murphy's other more metalcore influenced project. But this shit goes hard, and I've been binging it ever since it came out.
And I saw them open for Knocked Loose in Vegas when we were young weekend, and they're so good live as well. And I remember opening up Instagram this day, and it was just unannounced, surprise, and everyone's talking about this EP. And I'm like, oh shit, Counterparts just released this new EP. I better go check it out. And immediately texted you and was like, dude, this is heat. Every single song is a straight heavy fire. And I think because there's 6 songs on this, every single song rips for a heavy. 2024 was the year of heavy music. We've said this a few times now.
Yeah.
It really was. And all of these categories, especially coming from me and from my end, leaning more towards the pop side and the punk side and the emo side, all of these categories are leaning towards TJ's heavy side because it really was just the year of heavy music.
Yeah, I think everybody was really pissed off this year, and it really came through in the music.
Can't wait to see what next year is going to be like.
I know, right? Our next category is going to be Album of the Year. Again, if you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out because we shouted out so many great albums. But we had a consistency at the top of our list. Our 3, 2, and 1 were all the exact same. I won't give away 3 and 2, but our number 1 record of the year, Bring Me the Horizons, Posthuman, Next Gen.
Yes, this was definitely that album that both gave us nostalgia vibes for the 2000s if you grew up listening to the music that we did, obviously, but also wanting something new and fresh.
Yeah.
This was that album that I think you're nostalgic for something that you never experienced because it took the best of the nostalgic sounds, pushed it forward into a new direction that in 10, 20 years, we're going to be nostalgic for this album.
Yeah. Major influences, but it's all innately Bring Me the Horizon. They always put their own spin on everything, and it always comes out so well, and this album's no different. So
this was, spoiler alert, our number 1 combined for our album of the year if you haven't listened to last week's episode, but go back and listen to find out what our 2 through 8 were, because we had a solid 20 to 30
pool
records
of albums that we were considering.
Yeah. And we mentioned all those in the beginning, so you'll be able to hear about that from that episode. But that ultimately ended up being our number 1 album. So we are giving that album the nod for album of the year this year. Combined.
Absolutely. And then finally, artist of the year, probably the biggest prize of them all. Shouldn't really be that surprising to you, to be honest, but
I want to take a second here.
Okay.
She need to take a sip of water real quick before we announce who it is, because I have a feeling we're going to talk about the year that they had, and I feel like we're going to get really, really deep into this, and I just want to be prepared. So
I thought that you were going to take a drink for a second because you're clearing your throat to be like, knock loose, motherfucker. Obviously, it's Knock Loose.
It has to be. Who else would be the artist of the year? There seriously is no one else. Like, we've had huge years from everybody. Yeah, we had a comeback in Linkin Park. Yeah, Bring Me the Horizon dropped the album of the year. But, like, think of all of the things that Knock Loose has done, not just for themselves as a band, but for the scene, but for heavy music, the mainstream success that they've had, getting heavier. Like, they've just been that band this year. They've pushed that envelope further. Like, let's talk about some of the things that they've done this year. Like, let's get into it. We had this conversation before we hit record. So, like,
I feel like every month we were talking about something new with Knock Loose, like dropping singles leading up to the album, them playing Sick New World and bringing out Poppy to do Suffocate. It was a massive viral moment for them.
They already came into the year strong, kind of ending off 2023 with Blinding Faith and Coachella, and then into this year. And now even for next year, setting up, they're going to be playing When We Were Young next year.
Yeah,
they're going to be on Jimmy Kimmel. They got nominated for a Grammy.
This year, 2 massive tours. They sold out their own headliner, I'm pretty sure, and then they were opening for fucking Slipknot and stadiums,
they opened
bro.
For Slipknot. Yeah. Like, this really, really was the year of Knock Loose. Like, every single thing they did was just like groundbreaking. Like I said, for the band, for a band in that category with that type of music, and to continue to get heavier. Like, say what you want about Knock Loose, say what you want, make fun of his Mickey Mouse voice, whatever you want. I don't care.
The SpongeBob lyrics.
They're just make fun of the meme of the arf arf all you want. They just continue to push the envelope and push the boundaries for bands within that space.
Yeah. And what I think is best about them is that they really truly showcase you don't have to sacrifice heaviness to get that mainstream attention. Like, they doubled down on the heaviness, do what they love, and they got rewarded for it.
Yeah. And they don't stray. They didn't have to change their sound or sell out or any of that in order to be the biggest band in the world. I think at one point they were like competing with Taylor Swift on the top
the 100. Viral charts. I totally forgot about that. Another big thing. Yeah, they were like 4th or 5th on like the viral songs of the year.
Yeah, I think they got up to like number 2 or something. I have to go back and fact check that, but like they were gunning for Taylor Swift at one point. Like, for a band like that to be gunning for Taylor Swift is almost as big as the time that Nirvana knocked Garth Brooks off the top. You know what I mean? Like, a band like Nirvana, like, that's the level that we're talking at with a band like Knock Loose. So
the new album was like 20 something, 23 or something like that on the Billboard 200. Massive sell for the album too. Really, but like, I feel like every year they're doing something to be like, okay, this, like, Knock Loose had a breakout year, another breakout year. They're playing Coachella. This is massive. This year it's even bigger. Like, I just wonder what they're gonna do next year.
Like I said, and I can say this again and again and again. Say what you want about them personally, but what they've done for the scene and for heavy music and being that. Even that, like, gateway or that entry level for a lot of kids to get into this type of music and then support some of your favorite bands that you may actually like if you don't like Knock Loose. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, some kids might discover Knock Loose, go into Turnstile, and then all of a sudden they're listening to bands like Speed or, you know, and like getting into, and it might get them involved in their local scene and just growing that in general. Like, there's always that gateway. We all got into this type of music through some big mainstream band that made it onto Much Music or MTV or the radio, and then started to dive in deeper. And Knock Loose is that gateway for so many kids into this like crazy heavy type of hardcore and metalcore. So like, to see the success from Knock Loose just makes me so freaking happy.
Same. Across all of these categories, there was obvious big representation from Knock Loose and Poppy. And, you know, it's easy to see why.
So really, really crazy year for music, especially heavy music, and could not wait to see what 2025 has in store for us. Who do you think is the artist of the year? If you disagree with us, I want to know who you would put there. Who did we snub? Who do we not mention? Because you know what? Every single damn
snubs are real.
award show, they always talk about freaking Leonardo DiCaprio getting snubbed.
Yeah.
So who did we snub? I want to know. I need to know. Who are we calling for justice for? Who are they canceling us because we didn't mention?
2 episodes in a row, Matt's picking up his mic.
I want to know, why are you canceling us? Who did we not mention? Which favorite band of yours did we not mention?
Anyways,
it was 21 Pilots.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't think so.
It was like, really? You didn't put Clancy at the top of your list?
It's been a fantastic year for music. It's been a great year for the podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for checking us out, engaging, sharing, listening, just, enjoying what we do, and we can't thank you enough.
And I think it's more important now than ever to smash that subscribe button, to
Going
hit
into
that
the
follow
new year.
button.
Big things in the new year.
We're going into also a little short couple of week break so we can just enjoy, Christmas and New Year's with our family. So
I'm also defending my PhD thesis at the beginning of January. So give me a little break.
Yeah. So we've got some a lot of. I think a 2-week break is
warranted. Yeah.
So we hope that you have a wonderful holiday season,
yes,
a magical new year, and we cannot wait to talk to you in the new year and bring you more episodes for 2025, more festival coverage, more concert coverage, more reviews, more guests, all of that. So go and hit that subscribe and follow button so you are ready for it in 2024 and you get a little bit out of the habit of listening to our episodes each and every single week, and that notification will remind you, oh yeah, our favorite podcast has a new episode.
I'm excited to do this one, the one and only time I'm going to do this all year. We'll see you next year.
All right, I'll let you have it.